Hey, this is David with Shur-Loc Fabrics, and we're going to look at the Accelerator X tensioning system. Primarily today, we're going to be looking at the square bar frame setup, mostly the manual frames that you're going to be using in your shop on a day-to-day basis. So let's take a look at the hardware that we're going to be using for that, and then we'll get into setting it up and stretching up the frame. So we've got some of the base plates here. This one is a little bit different, as you will see. It doesn't have one of the support pieces on here. So you'll have three pieces. Two are the same, one's separate here. We've got the mounting knobs, we've got adjustable wrenches, and our square bar adapter. Now this is in use with our Accelerator X turntable as well. So this is an optional piece, or you can mount it to a table yourself. We definitely recommend that you use something that's really sturdy, at least 3/4 of an inch or 1 inch if you're mounting it yourself. So let's set up the hardware pieces. I'll start off with the square bar adapter. We've got our little standoffs. And we've also got a slotted little strip here, so that will line up directly over the top here, and just get that, start to hand tight that down. Grab a little Allen wrench or a Phillips, whatever style you've got. Just turn those down, and with those slots in the bottom, that's going to give you a little bit of adjustability. Now you don't want to set up your frame tight, so we will get into that in just a minute once we put on our frame for a final adjustment. But since I've set that up before, I know that I'm going to push this bracket a little bit towards the front side. So I'm going to rotate around, and that's one of the beauties of having the table, is that you can rotate it around. We have a center knob here that spins on a base, so I can pull the work to me. These are all pre-labeled and pre-drilled if you have the table, which makes it really handy to switch from size to size. This table will do up to a 23/31 size in both the MZX and M3. They also have T-nuts in the bottom, which the T-nuts will also come with your kit if you want to mount it to your own table. So the steel T-nuts, make sure that they don't strip out over time when you take it in and out, like a wood screw can do. So I've mounted my separate little piece right here in the front. That's what turns it into a square bar kit. So we're going to be stretching two sides here and then one side here, and that will take care of all three of our rollers, and then our square bar will sit on our square bar bracket down there, of course. So rotate these down, just get those snugged up so the back end won't lift when we start to get pressure on it. Everything looks good. I like it. We've got our wrenches. We can just move these off to the side for right now until we get our frame set up. So here's a really common frame that's out in the industry. This is an 1820. This one's actually measured on the inside dimension. It's got the one square bar, and then it's got three rollers here. So we'll just simply put the square bar in the back edge of our square bar adapter. And then we've got these little mounting screws right here that hold the corners in nice and tight. So like I mentioned before, you want to set it up so that you've got a little bit of play. If there's too much, then it can slide around too much, and you don't want that. So just snug that up. The adjustment, remember, is going to be where those standoffs are. You can slide the square bar bracket forward or back so you can get that adjusted just right for your frames. So once we've got the frame in there, that looks good. We've got our little stick pins in here, so we're all set. So we'll grab one of our Shur-Loc fabric panels. This one has the square bar set up on here, so the color is always going to be on the small roller side. So this blue represents, this is a 160 mesh. So I will just reach across here. Normally you could rotate the turntable around for easier loading, but for video's sake, we'll just load that up and reach across there. Then I will come directly parallel across to my short tube, and just put a little bit of pressure on that. Hold that with your hand until you can grab your wrench. Now our wrenches have a little arrow right here on the jaw itself. So you want to make sure, this is a really critical step, that you would point that arrow right down into the same extrusion where the plastic will go. So slide that right over that hex lug on the end of your tube and begin to rotate that out. Now we just want enough to hold the wrench in place. So just go up to the very first hole here, and then I'm just going to rotate around to this other side. And it doesn't matter which long side or one of the sides rather you go to first. You can just load that up. Grab another one of your wrenches, And as you can see, we are just going to start that on the top hole as well. Rotate around to my third and final side here and load in my Shur-Loc panel. See those connectors, if you just rotate that in at a 45-degree angle, they just tilt right into the slot on your frame. Make sure that your frames are free of any little debris or ink debris or emulsions that's dried on that inside edge, which could poke into the mesh. We'll grab our last wrench. Remember that arrow has to point down in right where the plastic goes there. That establishes the same starting point on all three sides. So as I rotate down, I know that I'm getting the same degree of rotation on all the tubes that I'm going to be stretching. So once I've got that into hole one, I'm going to come back to my first side, pull this down a little bit more, and obviously with a square bar, you can only rotate this one side and that compensates for this direction of stretch. So I'll rotate this down. I'm not going to go all the way. Probably, I've stretched this once before, and that's the beauty with the Shur-Loc panels, is once you stretch one, then you can replicate that on future stretches of the same mesh count. So it's really handy to make a little book or some little reference that you can just stick on the wall next to your stretcher, so once you get in some 160 mesh, you know which numbers to go to, and then just fine tune it with your tension meter after that. So what I've done here, whatever I do to this side, this tube here, I want to match it over here because those are parallel and you want that same degree of rotation on both sides. So I've matched that up. I'm on hole number 4 there as well. And once I've come here, we know that we're going to have to stretch this one more than we would on the sides because it's only got one roller tube to compensate for both directions there. So I'm going to go down to probably hole number 6. Then I'll take my Shur-Check 130 tension meter here, put that on, and I'm about 36 going this way and about 34 going that way. So if I want to even that up, I've got a little bit less tension going this way than I've got going this way. So to fine tune that, you can easily, we've got offset holes here. So we've got the front ones are half movements, the back ones are whole movements. So I can rotate that down and I can just get a little bit more on that. Like I mentioned, ideally you want to match both sides, but once you get really, really close, and if you're just doing half movement holes, you can just do one if needed to get the exact tension that you want. So I'm right at about 35 newtons, I believe. Look on my side here. So I matched up both 35 newtons in both directions. So if that's where I want to be, that's a pretty good solid tension. I'd like this to relax down to about 30 newtons. So I'd probably start in the mid to upper 30s for this. But I will begin the tensioning process now of the bolts, the torque. So it's best to have a torque wrench when you're tightening up bolts because that gives you the even amount of torque on every single one, so you're not going too loose on one and too tight on another. Typical torque on these MZX frames are a little bit smaller bolt, probably 35 to 40 foot-pounds, but you can check with the manufacturer of your frame to make sure that that's in spec. We just don't want those to back off. So I highly recommend that you torque the bolt that's going downward first. And you can hear that click. I've already preset this torque wrench to the appropriate foot-pounds there. So that gives you the indication that you're at where you need to be once you hear that click. So after that, once we've gone down, now I want to put the wrench handle up more vertical towards the ceiling. And when I tighten these bolts, I'm going to be pushing towards the frame. That's going to help prevent the frame from racking when I'm done. If I pull from my hip over here and lift up, that can put some strain on the frame and it can make it rack up and down a little bit. So once I've got my short end done, I'll go over to the other side here. And remember, I've done the downward stroke first, and then I'll do the upward and finish it up on this far side here. Once that's complete, we can just simply remove the wrenches and the pins. Make sure you move your wrench too so it doesn't knock out on the floor. slide this over. And we've just stretched our little manual square bar frame 1820. Looks great, tension's awesome. It's nice and flat. You're ready to go degrease this and get printing right away. This will save you a ton of time. For more videos, go on to Shur-Loc.com and check it out. Thanks so much.